I already scared her off from 2 weeks ago?
She's going again. I was so done.
All I said is just join the Facebook forum.
She got scared and ran away.
I'll approve you immediately. I'm not scared of the press.
I think she's. I'm not sure she ever. She might have waited.
Oh.
Like really far, so I'm not sure.
Huh?
But she's working back in Victorville, and
Oh, wow.
it's not a newspaper position, so she's like
I wouldn't commute from Victorville to Orange County for $100,000 a year.
I know.
Much less that she's not getting anywhere near that as a reporter.
I know, exactly.
There's just no way.
So I'll probably have someone new again.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Brian,
Hey,
nice to see you.
nice to see you. Like your tie?
How many children do you have?
One.
That's the picture you and your. How old is the picture?
Probably 11 years old.
Okay, how are you doing?
Yeah, 15 now.
15. Where'd you go to school?
Marina.
You taking any AP courses?
No.
I figured you're like, I
The meeting is called to order. Open session at 6:02. I'm going to report about our closed session meeting. We had one item of action, not by vote, but by presidential executive order. I formed a subcommittee on charter schools. I have appointed and I have accepted appointments. The appointees accepted my appointment, and that would be Trustee Clayton Tarvin and Trustee Singer. We'll go to item F on the agenda, the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Place your hand over your heart, or is this your custom? Ready? Begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Superintendent Hanson, do we have any introductions? Item G.
We have no introductions at this time.
Item H, minutes. Item H1, regular Board of Trustees meeting, January 8, 2019. I'm looking for a motion to approve. Singer, second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Passes 5-0. Item H2, special Board of Trustees meeting, January 15, 2019. Singer moves. Souter second. Is there any discussion? Trustee Westwell?
Yes, I was ill on that meeting. I was not able to attend, so I will be at the meeting.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'll take the vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All those abstaining?
Aye.
That would be like aye as in me, right? Or aye as in yes. Okay. Thank you, Trustee Westwell. 401. We have item I, time certain. We have two items. I-1, 605, early, annual financial audit report for information. Superintendent Hanson. And we would like to see 7 minutes on each item, please.
President Briscoe, we have a representative from our independent auditor here tonight to review both audits. And I'll let him introduce herself. And so we also have our Director of Fiscal Services, Keith Farrell, sworn in.
Thank you so much for being here this evening. I'm here to present to you your audited financial statements for both the regular audit report, which is the very large one here, probably over 100 pages or close to it, and the building fund measure R. So let's start with the first one. I always like to start the presentation by giving a little synopsis of what we're doing here. The audit is intended to provide reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement. And that's our terminology. Reasonable being different than total. Total means we're looking at every single thing. But another way of putting it is it's intended to provide you a level of assurance that the information that you're getting from your business management is information that you as the governing board can rely on when you make the decisions, and that's probably the most critical component to that. Again, I mentioned there's a lot of information in this report, and I have to say that it can be a tough read. So what I always try to do is direct the governing board to the 2 specific pages that I think are absolutely necessary in your review of the report. The outcome. So everything in this report is your information, except for the opinions related to the areas that we're looking at. And those opinions and the outcome of those opinions are summarized on page 94. The highest level of assurance that the auditors can provide you is an unmodified opinion. So in those instances where I say something that other than unmodified, you want to ask the question why that is the case. 3 specific areas that we looked at as it relates to this audit: the financial statements as a whole. In addition, we looked at the internal controls that support the financial statements, or those numbers. The federal awards specific that we had to test. In addition, the internal controls that support those numbers. And then lastly, the state awards. For the federal and state awards, primarily we're looking at compliance. So with that said, the outcome. As it relates to the financial statements, an unmodified opinion. As it relates to the internal controls that support those numbers, we did not identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. As it relates to the federal awards, 2 programs, specific programs that we tested. Again, an unmodified opinion as it relates to these programs. Again, we did not identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies specific to those programs. Lastly, as it relates to state awards, an unmodified opinion, which is, I'll be honest with you, it's difficult because there's so many federal, state awards that we look at, and anytime there's any state monies, there's almost always an audit attached to those. Now, I did mention that we did not identify any material weakness or significant deficiencies. With that said, we do identify what we call control deficiencies. They begin on page 99. And these are opportunities for you, that we believe, to improve your processes. I mentioned 2 pages in the audit report that I think are significant. The other page is page 80, Schedule of Financial Trends and Analysis. I like to say that you don't really know where you're going unless you know where you've been. Trends are critically important because it allows you to look to see where you are trending. The trends that I would make sure that you are cognizant of on this page, the most important one is your attendance. As you know, your attendance is what drives your funding source. It drives your ability to offer programs, and as it declines, then you have to look to see how you're going to factor that into your expenditures. You've done a pretty decent job in 2 of the last 3 years as far as not what we call deficit spending. In this past year, There was a little bit of deficit spending, but that could also be because you're spending down your available fund balance. That's the key for me though, is your attendance. Critically important to your funding. So that summarizes the outcome of this audit. Would you like me to move forward to the second one and we can answer questions on all of them, or would you prefer me to stop now?
What's the will of the board? Proceed.
As it relates to Measure R, the building fund. The focus on this is both the financial statements related to the building fund and
You have 2 more minutes.
okay, and compliance. The specific compliance is whether or not you spent the monies as you were required to under Article 13A of the state constitution, as well as the measure documents themselves. As it relates to the financial statements, we are providing you an unmodified opinion as it relates to the building fund Measure R. As it relates to compliance, the performance, we looked at a total of approximately $2.9 million of the almost $4 million of expenditures, actually a little over $4 million, which represents 71% of total expenditures. We did not find any that did not comply with both Article 13A of the state constitution or the bond measure. So that summarizes the outcome of that audit. So now I'm here to answer any questions you may have regarding either.
And you're under time. I would have been delighted to add 5 more minutes, but you didn't need it. Are there any questions from the board? I do. Measure R is the bond measure, and Fund 40 are facilities funds. Is that correct?
Fund 40 is a capital facilities type fund.
And did you look at both of those?
Yes.
If a school district borrowed from Fund 40, intending to pay it back for operating expenses, for pension payments or retirement payments or whatever in time of crisis, do you go back and look and make sure they pay the money back? No, not now. I'm just in general.
Right. I'm actually looking at the transfer itself that occurred, and it was actually, it says for debt service payments. Absolutely. But that transfer occurred during the year, so that would, what we would look at is when you're talking about paying back is whether or not there was an amount owed at the end of the year that had not been paid back. If it was intended to be paid back in the current year, we look to see that it has been paid back, yes.
Excuse me, President Briscoe, I think you're referring to a transfer that may have happened a few years ago.
But it's a question in theory.
But it wasn't in this past year.
That's correct. But do you, for especially at Fund 40 or a Measure R, where the funds are absolutely statutorily directed to one thing only, do you look to see where there's been inter-fund borrowing instead of COPS or other?
Absolutely, because as you say, statutorily, those monies in Fund 21 can only be spent for the specific projects identified within the bond measure.
Can the district borrow from Fund 40 but then put it back before the end of the year?
Fund 40 is your own monies, so they are not restricted. You may have put them in for any reason, although you may also put in proceeds from a sale of a property or something like that that may constitute a restricted amount. You may also have some debt issuances that you have in there that are restricted, but they're not all restricted money. So yes, we would absolutely look at those.
Thank you. And your GASB, not GAP.
Where we're both actually, general, governmental auditing process and procedures and general governmental auditing standards. So we're both here with this.
And do you have any review of our pension situation?
Do you have a specific question related to that?
Yes, in that giant 100-page document, is there any discussion about the unfunded pension and the expected increase in pension payments up to 23% of the total budget in the next 5 years?
Sure. The pension itself is not, and the obligation itself is not something that is going to be resolved at a local level. It really is a statewide issue, and so if we're talking pension reform, that really needs to come from the state of California. What I'm saying is you're not going to resolve it here.
We pay what we're told to pay. Do
Exactly.
you have projections on what it looks like it's going to be paying?
No, the state will modify that. In fact, they actually announced that they are modifying a future payment because of increase in earnings and projections of actuarially driven projections.
So last week we heard from the new governor of the state of California, his proposal, and I'd like to just get your general feedback on what what you heard, and what does that mean to us locally here in the Ocean View School District?
Well, it benefits every school district. If they're lowering the rate that they are asking you to pay the employer's portion, then obviously whatever amount it was projected before, the difference between what was projected before and projected now will be a savings to you. But again, that's a statewide savings for every local educational agency.
Thank you. Did you review school site student body funds? At several school sites, we have student scores. They take in money, touch money that doesn't belong to us. Or maybe it does when we sell things. There were some issues with that a few years ago. What did you find?
The comments related to ASBs for the sites that we visited that we had issues begin on page 104, and that was one specific observation regarding school site deposits. We did not identify any specific issues related to inventories.
This time?
This time.
Thank you. And then last, what is our district's net worth?
Your net worth?
Yes, what's the district worth?
Your net worth, or what we would call your net position, would be reflected on page 14. That position, net position is negative $5 million.
And how do we arrive at that negative number?
The net position is derived by the categories on page 14, including net investment in capital assets. That would be your capital assets minus any debt related to that. Debt service, that would be your fund balance and your debt service funds minus any debt related to debt, such as accrued interest. So each of those categories, the biggest thing that's driving this is your unrestricted net position of negative $94 million. That primarily is coming as a result of your $206 million net pension liability.
So we're sort of back up to that first item, Gatsby pensions.
Right.
So would you say it again so we can all understand it?
What's driving the big component.
The big numbers at the end of it.
Oh, you mean the $206,187,336 million worth of net pension liability?
Net pension liability that are unfunded that we owe at some point.
Yes, that actually would be what's calculated as the unfunded liability.
Thank you. Any other questions? Trustee Westphal?
You do these audits for several different school districts.
We audit about 300 local educational agencies in the state.
Okay, and what, our budget's about $87 million. We carry the minimum, statutory minimum reserve balance. It's at 3%, I believe it's 3%.
That's the.
How does this fish out with the rest of the districts? Are the rest of the districts approximately our size? Are they using a statutory minimum requirement as their reserve balance, or are they using a higher number?
Well, you're not actually at the 3% for this year. I think you're actually a little closer to 10% based on the end of the year.
Okay.
Of course, that could change. Now,
my question is other districts and how we kind of relate to them.
I think, my general thinking, and I'm going to speak specifically about Orange County because that's where we're at right now and how you compare it to them. I think that's about in line with what I see, at the end of the year, because it's a moving target. It's really what you're representing here is your fund balance as of June 30th, 2018. And it changes constantly. Tomorrow, the day after this day, it's a different number. So your fund balance is not static. It's moving.
Any further questions? Thank you, Trustee Westphal. Any further questions? There are no further questions. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Item I2, Building Fund, Measure R. Well, now we've already audited, I guess that's over. No. Measure R, Financial Performance Audit Reports for information. Superintendent Hanson, would you? We just gave that one of those too. Oh, yeah, we did get both of them. Great. Item J, Public Comments. At this time, members of the public may address the Board of Trustees regarding a matter of public interest not appearing on the agenda, but within the subject matter jurisdiction of the governing board for Education Code 35-145.5 and Government Code 54954.3. No action may be taken on comments of off-agenda items unless specifically authorized by law. In order to address the Board of Trustees, a speaker has the option of completing and submitting a blue card to the board's recording secretary prior to the start of the open session. Speakers wishing to address the Board of Trustees after the first public comment section of the agenda will have the opportunity to do so during any other public communications to the Board of Trustees later in the meeting. If the speaker wishes to address the Board of Trustees on an item on the agenda, time will be provided at the commencement of that item. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. Per Board Bylaw 9323, the speaker will address the president, that would be me, from the podium when speaking to the Board of Trustees. Are there any public comments, Trustee Souders?
There are 2 public comments. The first is Kathleen Rockney.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Rockney. I am a longtime resident of Fountain Valley, California, so sister district of all of you. And I have a general for your information comment and information that I wanted to share. This particular district is solidly in the 72nd Assembly District. I am a newly woke constituent of this area and learning an awful lot about the voting process. I think we as residents quite often see that our piece of government action is about going to the voting booth, and so these comments that I have tonight are for that part of your population that are registered Democrats. We are able to, as registered Democrats in this area, elect delegates that are going to be able to go within the state of California and actually act as our further representatives at a base grassroots level that is absolutely amazing. What I want to do today is give specific information for this area, that for those who are residents of this area, this district, and are registered Democrats or wish to be, this Sunday, January 27th, we will be meeting at the Machinist Lodge, 725 at 5402 Bolsa Avenue on the 2nd floor in Huntington Beach, which is actually very close to here. We're opening the doors at 10 a.m. and we are allowing all Democrats to come in and vote for the delegates that they would wish to have represent them. I in particular am running for this, and I'm happy to represent a slate called the True Blue Slate. Anyone who is interested in this process, and I highly recommend that if you are a registered Democrat or wish to become one, please join us in this process, because it is about getting down to the bottom level where actually all of the magic occurs. I am part of a slate of 14 people. We are called the AD 72 True Blue Slate, and you can find us on Facebook by actually searching on those terms, AD 72 True Blue, and you'll find the list of us, which includes Honorable Gina Clayton-Tarvin, Shana Lathis, Libby Frolickman, Shannon Brooke Limbaugh, Michelle Newman, who is actually also running for our e-board, Debbie Parrott, myself, Kathleen Rockney, the Honorable Sergio Contreras, Honorable Jameson Power, Rabbi Stephen Einstein, Dr. Harns Larson, Oscar Rodriguez, Darren Ham, and Nathan Searle. Thank you.
Second speaker is Shana Lathis.
Good evening, President Briscoe and trustees. Thank you so much for allowing me a few minutes to speak to you. I'm so excited that Kathleen introduced our slate, and I'm also here for those registered Democrats within the Ocean View School District to hopefully come and vote for us, because I think, well, first of all, I want to thank the Ocean View School District voters, because now that the maps are out of how the city council run went, I wanted to thank those of you that voted for me, because it looks like we really developed some relationships here, and I appreciate that I was able to earn your trust and earn your votes. And I humbly ask you to support me in this, because I'm hoping that you know me well enough by now, and if you don't, I'd love to talk to you. I am a listener, and I am here to represent your voice as a delegate to the state party. I think that it's so important, especially for our Ocean View voters, to have educators as delegates. And I'm excited that we have so many educators on our slate. The California Teachers Association has been spreading the word about our teachers that are running as delegates in every assembly district in our state. And I think it's so important to have folks who will speak up and choose to endorse candidates who have our children's futures at the heart of the matter. And so I'm really excited. I hope that if you have any questions, I've got paperwork over here. Please don't hesitate to ask me. I hope to see you on Sunday. For those of you who are registered Democrats or are willing to become them, I know there's a couple of you that will choose not to, but I hope that you'll support us emotionally anyway. And so I just wanted to thank you for your time, and hopefully I will see you on Sunday morning over on Bolsa. Got the address for you right here. If you have any questions, please ask. Thank you.
Thank you. What is that address?
5402 Bolsa Avenue on the second floor of the Machinist Lodge 725.
Are there any other public comments?
There are no more public speakers.
Thank you. And I allow, thank you. I allow the speaking that's any matter of community interest, not our jurisdiction, or certainly meeting in Union Halls is not within our jurisdiction, but it certainly falls in the area of public interest. On item K, communications, K1, written communications to the board. Superintendent Hanson.
We have none at this time.
K2, board committee reports.
We have none.
K3, trustees communications, starting with trustee Singer.
Short and sweet. Thank you for joining us again. It's a pleasure to see all of you here again, and I hope you guys have a short, good night here. Thank you.
Trustee Westwell.
Yes.
Trustee Clayton Tarlin.
Good evening, everybody. Glad to see you here. I wanted to report some things that I've been involved in these past 2 weeks, and some things that I'm going to be involved in next week. One is that I visited Santa Ana, and I went to Senator Tom Umberg's swearing in. It was a good evening, and learned a lot about what his plans are for the 34th district, which encompasses the Ocean View School District almost entirely. He's our newly elected state senator, replacing Janet Wynn. I also attended the Ocean View High School informational night at Marine View. That was very informative. Trustee Singer was there as well. We both have 8th grade children. I have a son and she has a daughter that are both in the 8th grade and considering going to Ocean View High School. I'm also going to be attending the high school nights at Marina High School and Huntington Beach High School to kind of learn about the different programs and make an informed decision with my child about his next year's placement as a 9th grader. I'm very pleased that he'll be continuing on in his public school education through the Huntington Beach Union High School District. As several of our speakers had mentioned, there is an election coming up this weekend. It is just down the street from here on Bolsa Avenue, across from the old Boeing facility at the Machinist Lodge. It's for Assembly District delegates, so this is statewide delegates for the Democratic Party. These are the people that make the decisions about who will get the nominations, endorsements, to be able to go to the general election against the other candidate, usually from the Republican Party. I am currently a delegate to the state central committee. I have been so for 2 years, and I'm going back for re-election and bringing along some wonderful people on our slate. We have been endorsed by our Congressman, Harley Ruda, and I've personally been endorsed by Senator Umberg as well. And I think it's going to be a good day of listening to information about how representatives want to get out there and work for the people. If you're not a registered Democrat, you can actually register on site or even beforehand if you want to switch parties. There were a lot of people in this past election that chose to switch. You're more than welcome to do that and to come vote for us that day. Also, I did want to mention something that Ms. Lathis said at the microphone. She was so humble. She talked about her making connections with community members during her city council run. But what she really did was she won almost every single precinct in the Ocean View School District in her city council campaign. Phenomenal for a first-time candidate. I think you have a major political future. I hope you run again. I will support you again. And lastly, I'm going to be attending Authors Day at Hopeview, and I'll talk more about that later in my second comments.
Trustee Sellers?
I'll keep them short this evening. Thank you for showing up, as usual, and thank you for sticking with us. Tonight, we're going to try to keep it as short as possible. And that's all I have.
And my comments are, I will make the meeting as long as it needs to be because of what we have to do. Sorry, that's just but it's turning out to be a rather expeditious meeting. I attended a protest in the city of Brea regarding an elementary school site named after a member of the KKK. It appears he's a member of the KKK. KKK is a secret society. They don't publish membership lists, so it's ascertaining membership is always difficult, but the provenance of the accusations of that are pretty clear. I sang "We Shall Overcome," and we had a great time outside, and I spoke before the school board inside. I attended that on my own behalf. I also attended the Orange County Department of Education all-day sucker. I was the sucker, getting stuck to their lousy agenda and inconsiderate time use. Picture this, we're sitting there in the morning, we all got there early, the meeting finally gets off the ground at 10 o'clock at their leisurely convenience. And at 11:30, we're all waiting for they have all this garbage in the front part of the meeting, so that the matter we were there for, which was a charter school discussion, is coming up later. They proposed to go into closed session and take a lunch break for an hour and a half, while the whole room is full of people. Oh, isn't that nice and convenient? Well, they changed their mind when they heard the ire and vim and vigor and vinegar and cut out their planned 1.5 hour exit and then continued and proceeded. And we were the last item on the agenda. It was the most rude, inconsiderate, poor meeting by any measure. Our meetings are walk on water wonderful here, I'm proud to say. So their time management, and then they tried to control the timing on people. I put something of an end to that because I sue and I win when governing boards seek to remove people's right to speak. So they actually changed things around with my encouragement. We have more work to do in that regard. It was abominable. We made our case. I think we made it well, and we're going to have to go at it again. So on the 23rd, is that the date? Superintendent Henson?
13th of February.
Please put 13th February on all of your calendars. We need all of you. We need masses of bodies, everybody, at the Orange County Board of Education at 10 o'clock when the meeting starts, to speak up and speak out on the charter school application before us with Sycamore. That's all I have. We'll move on to Superintendent's communication.
Well, good evening. I just wanted to say thank you to Keith Farrow, our Director of Fiscal Services, as well as Dr. Conroy, our Deputy Superintendent of Administrative Services. Tonight you heard an audit, 2 audits, and you saw that we are actually doing very well in how we manage our monies that come to the district. And we are a significantly large district compared to many in the state of California, and we have a lot of balls to keep in the air. And I'm very proud of the high level of accountability that this board holds on our staff and that we hold each other to in order to have those kind of audit reports tonight. And I just want you to know that takes a lot of work behind the scenes, and we have quality employees that are doing that work that need to be recognized. So I wish to recognize those tonight. That also includes our entire construction team that's sitting in the back that makes sure that we aren't spending money on things that we shouldn't be spending money on through all of the projects that we're doing through Measure R. So I just wanted to say good job to everyone involved. I was proud of our board and our parents and our staff who attended the Orange County School Board meeting this last week. We have a strong and supportive community of parents and staff in Ocean View who believe strongly that our public neighborhood schools are the best fit for our students. We strongly disapprove of the Sycamore Charter and the potential impact that this charter would have in our community. We believe that the Waldorf-inspired method that they propose has no benefit for our students. Our board shared that they were deeply concerned that Sycamore was deceitful and misleading in the manner in which they sought signatures to try to acquire a facility, that they unfairly targeted the Oakview community, in some cases offered books and after-school programs to parents who provided their signature to try to acquire our facility. You know, I want to point out that this charter claims to be Waldorf-inspired, and you know that many of the Waldorf-inspired schools are private schools with tuition over $15,000, and actually a similar public charter in Capo Unified School District has a Waldorf-inspired charter, the Journey School. And you know, on their website, they encourage families to provide parent participation and donation support, pointing out that the Waldorf school costs almost $15,000 to $16,000 to operate, yet the school district only supplies about $7,000. So just think of where they're trying to get the rest of the money. This is one of the reasons that we don't believe that this is the type of charter that we want in our school district. And I hope that we can have a good showing of people to come to the Orange County Board meeting on February 13th and show your support of the strong programs that we have currently in Ocean View, and that there is not a need for this charter. I also want to share that we have some exciting things going on coming up this week. A real special night, Kindergarten Parent Information Night. One of those key transitions in your child's life is attending kindergarten and or transitional kindergarten, and we have wonderful programs, and we want to tell you all about it. And we're going to have kindergarten teachers there, and principals and parents there over at Springview at 6 o'clock on Thursday night. Then the following week, another important transition is when your child goes to middle school. And that will also be held at Springview on Thursday night, January 31st. And the purpose of that evening is to showcase our middle schools and help make that transition from elementary to middle school go smooth and welcoming to our families to learn about our core middle school program as well as all of our elective programs. I also want to tell the board and our community to save the date. February 8th is the Tech Festival at Starview. And as the date draws closer, I'll give you more information about that event. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Hanson. I've been to the TED Festival. It's an event everybody should attend if they can. It's really fun.
I'm sorry, I have one more announcement.
The dragon, about the dragon. They'll have a real dragon again?
I don't know, well, is there a real, yeah, a real dragon.
Thank you.
Right, with live entertainment inside the dragon. But I have one special announcement. It's hot off the press. That's why I almost forgot to tell you. But we are proud to announce that our own Dennis Nicolosi, music teacher and band instructor at Mesa View, has been recognized as one of Orange County Parenting Magazine's top 25 teachers of Orange County for 2019. I just got this information. Mr. Nicolosi will be featured in the magazine's February edition and honored on February 6th at the Bowers Museum. He was nominated for his special distinction and selected from among hundreds of nominees. And so I think that we will bring him to a board meeting to honor him. And we applaud his commitment to students and the performing arts.
Thank you. What a wonderful up note to end on. My son had him for a teacher, I can attest. He is the best. And Trustee Clayton Tarvin says her son had him too. Let's see, we're on K5, PTA, PTO, PTSA, and PTSO President's Roundtable.
Good evening, President Briscoe, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Hanson, and Cabinet. My name is Leslie Sheridan, and I'm here to report on the President's Roundtable meeting that was held on Monday, January 14th. I'd like to thank Superintendent Hanson, Trustee Senior and Cindy Pulfer for coming and supporting us in the meeting and helping us move through some very important information. So to start, I'd like to share that we discussed the upcoming events of the transition from elementary to middle school and from joining kindergarten, as well as the middle school to high school. And this is a very exciting thing that the district does, and I'd like to thank you personally for providing that middle school to high school. That was kind of an element that has evolved into a really great thing. And it's a great start to have that first, that night where high school comes and introduces everything, and we're thankful that Ocean View High School came in and did that for us, and I'll put some props in for Ocean View High School. We love them very much. And I do think that it's a wonderful idea to go to all of the future freshman nights at the high school, so have fun at that, right? And then I'd like to share that we did have an update on the charter school from Superintendent Hanson, and she fielded many questions about what was going on. And at the end of the discussion, we all came to the understanding that the best thing for us to do is to attend the Orange County Board of Education meeting that was held on Wednesday, January 16th, starting at 10 a.m. And we hung in there as long as we could. We stayed until, I think we were there until 4:30, almost 5 o'clock, making sure that our opinions were heard. And we support everybody who came and spoke. And we'll be there on February 13th. We'll make sure that we have people there to make sure that we're all heard on the decision that's being made. And we appreciate the decision that you made on the Sycamore Creek. Right? We believe that, as a whole, I'm going to say that at the roundtable, it is of the opinion that there is a place for every student in this district. There is something for everybody. And we work hard, and you guys work hard, and the teachers work hard to make sure that there is a place for everybody. And we hope that our opinions are heard. Okay, so that was a big discussion that we had, and we hope that we see more support there at the board meetings that are upcoming. We did have a fundraiser come in. It is the Huntington Beach Tree Association, or Tree Society, and they raise money to help support all of the trees and the drought-tolerant plants that we have here in the parks. And we were presented with the fundraiser, and as a group, we raised money for the schools, the teachers, and the students. And so the agreement was that we were going to take the information that we had and share it with the student councils, so that hopefully the student body and the student councils can help with the Huntington Beach Tree Society and their fundraising. And that was met with, with glee. It was a fun thing, and we hope that the student councils will participate in that as we move forward. Lastly, we got an update from Cindy Pulfer in regards to the emergency bins and the supplies. And so we were informed that there were 23 bins that were going to be removed. There were 16 that are going to be replaced and 2 that are going to be moved completely from one place to the other. And that there has been a purchase of 180 55-gallon water barrels for each school site, and that there are 402 cases of emergency bars ready to get down to the school sites. And we as a group, the PTOs, PTAs, we understand that it's our responsibility to get our stuff out of those bins, right? So that the bins can be moved. So we got our assignment as we got updated on what was going on at the district, that those things have been purchased. We appreciate you purchasing those and making those available at the school level, and we're here to do whatever we can to assist in making that flow well and get those items out so we can get the new stuff in. And then lastly, we went over the mock drill that we had, the safety mock drill and the reunification. And we want to make sure that everybody knows that it will be our efforts to get that reunification document out to all the parents so that they know where to find their kids if there is an emergency. So thank you very much for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jason Bozarth, and I am the chapter president for CSCA 375. I would like to thank the board and administration for giving me this chance to speak. Well, it's been an exciting January so far, just like the body I am addressing. We recently had officer elections. Our board will be seated at the officer installation coming up with some old faces and some new ones as well. I will be returning as village idiot, otherwise known as chapter president. As will the inestimable Kathy Offerud as my vice president and Elizabeth Carr as my second vice president. It would be fair to say that my first term was something of a trial by fire. Boy howdy, would it ever. Over the past 2 years, we have faced down bigots, militias, held our respective organizations to a course that is hopefully leading us into a better future for our students and our staff. It has been my pleasure to work with the administration in our efforts with Powell. It is my intention to continue building that relationship with an eye towards perpetuity. Each school year, I try to start off with an overall theme and an objective to serve as a guiding principle of my decisions. This year, my guiding principle is in service to our membership. I will not besmirch the storied history of our chapter and its leadership, but it would be safe to say that our chapter has not had service to our membership as one of its defining characteristics. Through this course, it is my profound hope that our chapter will gain in strength, and with that strength, become a better partner in our relationship with the district. In the past, our relationship could have been defined as somewhat adversarial. But I believe that a union can be of great benefit by empowering its employees and bringing them to the table as active participants in the workplace. The benefits of having an engaged, active workforce who feels genuine enthusiasm for their work and their district far outweighs the additional cost, in my humble opinion, although the reality of such a proposition would probably lead Dr. Conroy to choke on his Diet Coke. In addition to sunshining our intentions to negotiate very soon, we are filling up our calendar with trainings and activities in order to better serve our membership. It is my hope that before the school year is out, we will be able to make a proposal for a Union Pride Day that will further mark our commitment to this relationship. Lastly, I would like to say that I am very proud of my chapter and my e-board, especially to those who came out to speak or simply be seen in support of OVSD. At the recent county board meeting of the Board of Education meeting, thank you all very much, sincerely. Even now, we are gathering signatures and preparing to send a letter to the 2nd District Trustee, Mary Barkey, in hopes that we can persuade them towards a positive decision in our favor, although in honesty, I am not terribly optimistic. This concludes my updates for this evening. Thank you all again, and have a good evening.
Before you sit down, I have a question.
Sure.
Many of the jobs in the district, in your organization, our district organization, require certifications, state licensing, and other things. In light of the Judas or Jonas, what was the group case?
Janice.
Decision, the services and benefits offered by membership in your organization need to stand high and sparkle wide. Does your organization do anything to help the sprinkler guy get recertified, to check the sprinklers, the bus drivers, and all, anything to help those people as added benefits?
Yes, we currently offer a variety of trainings, specifically geared towards helping our individual members advance in their career path. We also work with the Personnel Commission to arrange training and basically get regular reports. And I have someone who essentially converses regularly with Michelle Delanowitz of the Personnel Commission for the sole purpose of how we can better serve and guide our membership towards whatever future they want in terms of their career.
Thank you. OVTA, please.
Tough act to follow. Cabinet and trustees. First, I was honored to be able to go to the governor's workshop, and this is sort of our take on what we heard at the governor's workshop, the OVTA. It's a new year and a new governor. As a result of increased state revenues and local property taxes, the Proposition 98 guarantee for 2019-20 is at an all-time new high. of $80.7 billion. Governor Newsom's ongoing K-12 Proposition 98 education funding proposal for 2019-20 provides $435 per pupil more for 2019-20 than in 2018-19. Governor Newsom has proposed an increased funding for school districts and charter schools by $2 billion over 2018-19 levels. The proposed cost of living adjustment, our COLA, is at 3.46% for 2018 and 19, and is included in the calculation for each district's LCFF formula. Also, more good news. CalSTRS, a $3 billion one-time non-Proposition 98 allocation to partially buy down employer contributions from 18.13% to 17.1% in 2019-20, and from 19.1% to 18.1% in 2020-21, and an estimated 0.5% reduction in the out-year rate. This is in addition to the state making direct contributions of $2.9 billion non-Proposition 98 over 4 years to pay down the CalSTRS unfunded liability, and $3 billion to CalPERS. So this is good news. We're making progress. Secondly, the stakeholder engagement in Ocean View School District is at an all-time high. We are beginning to give stakeholder feedback to our LCAP already, right now. OVTA leadership has worked in collaboration with parents, classified employees, administration, cabinet, community stakeholders to prepare communication about all the wonderful things that our school district is doing through our blueprint. Truly, achievement and relationships matter, and we are making a difference, and we all work together, and this is what strong stakeholder engagement is about. This is truly important, as the Orange County Department of Ed on February 13th will be voting to grant an appeal from the Sycamore Creek Community Charter School to establish a charter school in the Ocean View School District. It will be important that all stakeholders communicate to each and every one of the Orange County Department of Ed Board of Trustees and talk about the impact that this will have on our school district. We can not only communicate by showing up at that hearing at February 13th, we can send emails, we can write letters. Some of you have personal relationships with these board members and you can call them. And I think it is vital that we do this in the next 2 weeks. Really get out there and communicate to the board members so that they know that their vote really truly matters and it is important to the many hundreds of stakeholders in the Ocean View School District. Thank you.
That concludes. That concludes our Employee Association's communication. We'll move on to reports. We have 3 reports tonight. I'd like to request the reporters to limit their presentation to 7 minutes or less. If you absolutely need more time, indicate that to me and I will consider it likely. First is L1, OVSD Connections Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP Process Overview.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Dr. Hofer, who has prepared an overview for our LCAP stakeholder engagement process to be taking place over the next few months. And I think you have a presentation copy of the PowerPoint there. We are proposing to do things a little bit differently this year, and so Dr. Hooper wants to explain some of those different steps that we're going to take to ensure that, as our meeting president shared, that we have clear stakeholder engagement.
Good evening, President Briscoe, Board of Trustees. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity tonight to talk about the Local Control and Accountability Plan stakeholder input process that we're proposing. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Local Control and Accountability Plan that I fondly call the LCAP. After that, talking a little bit about our stakeholder engagement and development. So let's start with a little bit about the Local Control and Accountability Plan, or LCAP. There are 4 tenets with which the LCAP is based upon. The first is that the LCAP will identify goals to improve or increase services to students. The second is that it's a real focus on student outcomes and achievement, that it links the budget process with local decision regarding educational programs, and that it requires local participation in the planning process. Just as a small reminder, it's adopted by the Ocean View School District Board of Trustees. It's a 3-year plan. So we're in the 3rd year of the 3-year plan. And throughout the rest of this presentation, you'll hear me refer over and over about input on the existing goals and actions that were developed in the initial phases and then updated along the way. It's implemented July 1st through June 30th of each year, and it's based on 8 state priorities. Now, these 8 state priority areas are kind of broken down into 3 areas. Conditions of learning, which is basic services, implementation of state standards and course access. Pupil outcomes, which is really about student achievement and other student outcomes. And then engagement, which is parent involvement, student engagement, and school climate. Our stakeholder engagement process, it's imperative that we have diversity and equity of input by stakeholders. And we really think in terms of 3 big categories. The first is parents, the second is staff members, and the third is students. And how do we engage each of these groups very strategically and intentionally to ensure that we hear their desires with regards to the LCAP. And so as you can see, we're looking at surveys for parents, we're looking at surveys for students, and then a variety of other opportunities for input. And in the spirit of doing things differently and actually similar to the Blueprint focus groups, we're bringing together a group of more than 20 stakeholders with broad representation to provide guidance with the LCAP update. The LCAP leadership team will include board members, site administrators, district staff, parents, as well as OVTA and CSEA representatives. So what does this really look like? Beginning this month all the way through the end of February, we're soliciting input on the existing 2019-2020 goals and actions, as well as soliciting ideas for new goals and actions. To jumpstart this process, before the end of this month, each school is putting together a stakeholder group who will be guided through our existing goals and actions by their principals. They are asked to provide input on the existing goals and actions, including changes and considerations for new actions. To date, we have 87 responses. That input, along with a variety of other opportunities for input, will be taken to our LCAP leadership team. They will review our annual progress. They will be provided this stakeholder input, and they will provide guidance around the first draft of the LCAP. Then in March, we will solicit input on that first draft that we've begun to change or keep the same, depending on what the stakeholders have to say, as well as solicit ideas for new goals and action. Remember, because this is the 3rd year of a 3-year plan, there may be ideas that we take and we build into the next 3-year plan, if it is not begun in 2019-20. We're going to get student input in the month of March, and I'll be back in front of you all to share the input from stakeholders, really a summary around that, and guidance from the leadership team, as well as engage in a discussion for where we are at that point. We'll then go back to the LCAP leadership team, reviewing that stakeholder input, and they will provide guidance again on the second draft of the LCAP. During April, we're going to administer climate surveys, as well as prepare the draft for OCDE to review. They are the group who reviews the LCAP and provides guidance with regards to state mandates. It will get submitted to the OCDE in May. We will then bring back that recommendation from the Orange County Department of Education and the draft to the LCAP leadership team before we post it on the website for public review. And then we get to the approval process. As I stated at the beginning, the approval of the LCAP is done by the Board of Trustees in a public meeting. So as you can see, the LCAP is scheduled for approval on June 25th and implemented just 6 days later on July 1st. And with that,
Do the trustees have any questions? Trustee Souders?
Yeah, I have a few, if you'll bear with me. So just for the public's knowledge and the rest of the board, how is the LCAP different from what came before the LCAP, the system that was in place before the LCAP was adopted by the state?
before that, the local control and accountability plan really captures the local control funding formula allocation. It's really considered a direct link between budget and educational program. Prior to that, we received money in a little bit of a different manner, and it was not as transparent for our community. In this case, the community has an opportunity to provide input, and it is really reflected in things like our LCAP.
So when we received money in the past, who determined how that money was spent before we had the LCAP?
Pretty much the district staff would bring recommendations for expenditures to the board for approval. Now we have a master plan that's tied to actual needs based on student needs and based on input from the various stakeholders.
So the idea here is to offer more transparency to the community. So
It's transparency, and the development of the plan is with a variety of stakeholders that Dr. Hofer has outlined tonight.
Okay, thank you. I have another couple of questions. Is it okay if I?
Please. Well,
can you give an example? You mentioned student surveys and focus groups. Can you give an example of how a student might impact the LCAP, like how their responses might impact the LCAP?
Absolutely. At the middle school level, we do solicit the input in a focus group of middle school students. So middle school students literally sit down and talk about, what does the ideal school look like? These are the things that we've talked about. But we're the adults. What do you think? You're actually in our schools for 180 days every year until you matriculate on. With regards to the survey, they're climate surveys. They help us to really understand what it feels like to be a student in our school. So a key component of the LCAP is really this idea of engagement in school climate. Not only are our schools safe with regards to rates for suspension and expulsion, but do our students feel safe? Do they feel as though there's an adult at school that cares about them?
Okay, and then these last two kind of go together, but the first part is, you mentioned stakeholder engagement, that the LCAP leadership team is made up of board members, site administrators, district staff, parents, OBTA, and CSEA. Are there specific board members that are on this team, or are you just including all board members on this team? And then you can answer that hopefully with this one. So let's just say board members sitting here right now listening to the presentation, I understand you're putting together suggestions for the LCAP's adoption this year. How might board members go about giving their input into the LCAP at this point, at this stage in the game?
If you don't mind, I'd like to address that.
Sure.
Because we had talked about this briefly at our last meeting when we were talking about board and collaboration and board superintendent collaboration, that our recommendation was to have 2 board members on our LCAP leadership team, which is different than what we had in the past. And Trustee Singer volunteered, and we were looking for another trustee, and at the time, Trustee Westwell's name was mentioned, but he was not here
So I just need the board to give that direction.
Trustee Westphal, would you be interested in serving? LCAP has always been a keen interest of yours in my recollection.
Well, thank you for your confidence in my leadership abilities, but I'm going to decline at this time. I just can't commit the time. Sorry.
So I just would like another board member to be on the leadership team. If not, one is fine, but it's really up to the board.
I volunteer my services as a teacher if you want.
Right, so the board will appoint Trustee Souders and Trustee Singer.
Okay, thank you.
And then in terms of how board members who are not on the leadership team, how might they offer input?
I think members of the leadership team are representing the voice of your group. So if you're soliciting, as a member of this board, I think you kind of know the direction that the board's interested in. And so you could solicit input from them individually.
Or they could talk to us.
Yes.
Or you could call us each day to ask if we have any new ideas.
No, each day, but sounds like a good idea.
And those that we'll let you know when those meetings are. We will have, as I think she put up there, OBTA, CSEA, parents are represented. We have so many parents from each school and administrators from each school.
Are there any other questions? Comments from the board? Trustee Clayton Tarver. Trustee Clayton Tarver raised her hand first. I'll be right back to you, Trustee Westphal.
Trustee Souders brought up a question that I actually was going to bring up. I was thinking about, when he asked about the student input. I recall one year, I think my child was in the 6th grade, and he came home and he said that he was called out to talk about what he thought about the school, and I said, what do you think about this and that? And I said, I think he was on the LCAP kid committee, and he was like, I don't know, but they asked us a couple questions and I'm not really sure, and I told him what I thought, and then I thought to myself, do we do this as like a longitudinal cohort, because he's never been asked again, and I know his interpretation of things has changed quite greatly from being in the 6th grade until now. He recently complained, and he wanted me to give my complaints to President Briscoe. He says the drinking fountains are bothering him again. That's a keen interest of President Briscoe. Anyway, but my 1st grader chimed in and said that he had similar concerns about drinking fountains. They want new drinking fountains. But then I thought to myself, do we have this cohort? Is it longitudinal? That's question 1, because I don't think my son's been back. And then 2, is there any way to move this into elementary school? Because I think you could get opinions, and pretty, decent opinions from maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th. Even if you talk to the little folks and ask them what they thought, you could make it. I think we might be one of the only districts that does that. I think it might be interesting, and then look at it longitudinally and just see what their opinions are. Have you thought about that?
I haven't typically done, in my experience, any longitudinal groups. I simply have gone back to the middle schools each time and asked that they choose students who represent their school well. Not necessarily every single student who is most active, but those students who they know have been in our system, who are very thoughtful and have some ideas. And so I have typically simply asked that it wasn't, this is going to sound, I hope it comes out correctly, it's not the same students over and over who have the opportunity to provide input, that we look a little deeper than that.
What about the younger students?
I typically haven't gone younger, but if we found someone for whom the students had a good relationship with, and it would be worth trying out, going out and seeing how they do. It depends on the relationship, and when they're younger, sometimes it's easier to get them to talk, to be completely honest.
Well, I think the bulk of the students we serve are actually elementary school students, and I think we may not be hearing from them. We're just assuming what their input is going to be. But they do have opinions, and I think that they should be heard. So I would encourage you to look into maybe expanding your focus groups.
Any questions or comments? I have a few. Tonight's S8.
I'm still
I'm
down.
sorry, yes, Trustee Westwell, I stand noticed. Please comment. Question?
Thank you, Trustee Briscoe. I have a comment and then a question. This is my 7th year of being a trustee, and what I've observed is California's education is woefully underfunded by the state, and it trickles down to us, and we have to deal with it. And in the time that I've been on this board, and I've talked to others that have been here longer, the state seems to be playing a shell game because of this. They don't want to give the money, and so they keep switching things around. They go from categorical to this, to that. Now it's the LCAP, and next year it'll be something else. It's just a shell game. We're constantly reinventing the wheel. Education really hasn't changed much over the last 100 years. We educate kids pretty much the same way. There's new technology and stuff, but we see in California completely reinvent everything all the time. We spin our wheels a lot, and that's very concerning to me because it ripples down to us and we have to deal with it. In this latest case with the LCAP, what I'm noticing, and it's a concern to me, is everyone has great ideas. And I know the LCAP is new and we're building it, but 3 years down the road, what I've noticed is all these ideas come to the table. Here's 17 great ideas, let's put them in the LCAP. Great, move on. Next year, here's the same 17 ideas, and we've got 14 more, and we put them in. And my concern is all of these things don't work effectively like we want them to. So I'd like to see more evaluation of the things that aren't working before we come up with new things. And go through and say, well, which ones are marginal, can we tweak a little bit? And which ones are just, let's get rid of them and do something else. I don't think we're doing enough of that. And if we keep just adding things all the time, it's going to be unsustainable, and it's going to be so unwildly, no one will be able to deal with it again. And finally, we'll just rip it up and throw it away and do something else. The mistake, bring something new. So my concern is what do we do? How do we evaluate these programs for effectiveness and make sure that the ineffective ones are modified so they become effective, or just simply get rid of them and do something else? Are we doing this effectively right now?
Program evaluation is part of what we do. So I came to you back in the fall with regards to one of the measures that is most public, state assessment results. And we found that the programs that we have are working for some students, for more than half of our students. And we recognize that there are specific student groups for whom we still are continuing to figure out how to meet the needs. Our charge is all students. And so I take what you're saying very seriously around evaluation, particularly with regards to meeting the needs of all students. So that's really where we are. We are just at the beginning of the process for really that annual update. And I will look critically based on your request, and how we've evaluated in the past and how we might evaluate in the future. We're mid-year, so it's always a little bit difficult because some of it is, well, we're not quite there yet. When we're in January and we're doing our annual update, sometimes that in and of itself makes for a little bit of difficulty. But we will continue to look for ways to meet the needs of all students and better meet the needs.
And I appreciate it. Thank you for looking at it, because I just don't want to end up being a compliance document. This thing really should be helping us move forward and achieve better student outcomes. So as long as we're doing that, I'm happy. But if we're stagnant or going down, then I'm going to ask you about that again. Thank you so much.
Trustee Singer, did you have your hand raised? Speak.
I can tell you as a parent, education has evolved. We are still focusing on basic things, but the way we're presenting it to kids is different. I remember the education my kindergarten got is completely different than when Gabriella went into school. The technique was different. It was there, but it was taught a little bit different and to fit the needs. So I think as education has evolved tremendously, and it has constantly changed, and I think as a district, do a really good job in making those changes and adjusting and trying to figure out what works and doesn't work. I'm excited to be part of this LCAP. I think this is I've been part of it as a parent, and I think this is a great way of getting input and really figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And I think it's easy to sit here and say, well, it's not working or not, but if you actually take the time to be part of it and really figure out what is working, what's not working, we can actually give valuable input. So I'm excited to be part of that committee and really figure out how we can really target those students that might not be thriving, and how can we reach to ensure that they are thriving and providing what they need. So thank you for that, I appreciate it.
Any other comments? I had a question. It says diversity and equity of input by stakeholders. Could you define for me what diversity means to you and what equity of input by stakeholders means?
Sure. Diversity means we hear from a broad representation of those we serve. For instance, if we were to have families for whom they only spoke English, we would know we'd be missing a huge part of our community. If every member who contributed, once again, came from a middle-class family, we would know that that would not be representative of the students and the families that we serve. So diversity is important, both in the representation as well as in who's in the room. It is our charge to hear from parents, guardians, students, staff members, so that really, if we've done a good job, there is no new information. That is my definition of a well-developed LCAP, that by the time we get to the public hearing, nothing new. I'm not surprised by anything that comes up. Equity means that everyone has a voice, even those families who typically have not had a voice. And so that equity is really to say that everyone gets an equal opportunity at contributing to the educational program here in Ocean View.
Do you have quotas or measurements of your diversity accomplishment?
Well, what we do is go out to a variety of different groups. So we think about our district English Learner Advisory Committee, our English Learner Advisory Committees that are at schools. They target a distinct group of families, a distinct group of parents and guardians. We think about our school site councils. We do look for diversity on the LCAP leadership team. So we are selecting parents who have children in very specific groups. We're working with the principals, I should say, to ensure that we really try to represent the students that we represent. So some of what we do is confidential, and we ask that the parent self-select a variety of different options. So we don't go out and, truthfully, I don't really know when I'm in a room whether or not a family qualifies, for instance, for free and reduced lunch. We really are sensitive about that, but if we only have families from one or two schools, most certainly will miss that piece.
Do we have a metric or measure of what we would like to see to accomplish diversity and what we actually accomplish?
Well, what we've done is, for instance, to jumpstart this process, each of our schools has identified stakeholder groups of between 10 to 15 participants to go out and solicit individuals, and they're allowed to solicit more than that. But we're starting with that to really guide that initial, that first round of input that's really targeted and purposeful. If we leave it to chance, we're less likely to ensure that every school is equally represented. Where we are relying to a large degree on our principals to help us identify folks in a sensitive and respectful manner.
You said we had 87 responses back. Do we have any measure of diversity of the respondees?
Respondents.
No, we did it by school. And so each school is going in and doing it purposely. I did not put it in that survey, in part because they're with a group of individuals, and I thought it might be, it's a sensitive measure. I'd really rather that if you're going to answer that, you were not with a group of individuals.
And the last question I have is, what in the world is OCD doing there? What is their job? No, I have that one too, but what is the OCD role in our LCAP review? Do they have a stop work order? Can they tell us it's not good enough, go back and do it again? What is their role?
The Orange County, well, all county offices of education are the governing group who reads and reviews every LCAP within their county. So they do provide guidance. They do provide guidance to the business because the LCAP is a partnership between everyone, in particular business services and ed services. So they will come back to me and talk about your metrics aren't strong enough. You've missed this state metric, this requirement. They're mostly looking at mandates, but they also do provide guidance back to our fiscal department if they have different information than what we have presented. That is my experience, not here in Ocean View.
Is it a yes or no, stop, go, or is it advisory that, gee, I want to include the full statutory requirement for these items to be reviewed? Or can they say, it's inadequate, we don't approve it?
I've never had that experience of it being anything other than a strong LCAP, so I don't know how far down they will
They can deny it.
Thank you. Any other
But
questions?
we've just been fortunate to not have to go through that.
Right. Oh, there is one more question. Trustee Singer.
You mentioned as far as student input from the middle schoolers, you mentioned you normally target, and I could have misunderstood it, students in leadership roles. What about the students that are struggling? Did I misunderstand that?
It's the reverse.
Okay.
We don't mind having some students who are in leadership roles in the room, but we want the students who oftentimes are missed.
Okay, so like students that maybe are having a hard time socially and that are just struggling, are we trying to get that kind of an input?
You know, the most important thing is that it's students who will participate. So sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the answer is the principal has to find the right group of students to put together to take the process seriously, as well as to provide input and not sit there silently. So it is a little bit of a delicate dance when you're putting a group together.
Okay. I do think that we look at students that maybe are benefiting currently from some of the services, or maybe could be benefiting from some of the services, so we can get their input.
Gotcha. I guess my question was for where I was going with this. It'd be interesting to hear the kids that maybe socially are having a hard time, trying to figure out what we can do better to improve their experience. And that could be for different reasons. That's kind of where I was going with that.
Trustee Westwell.
Thank you, Trustee Briscoe. On the diversity side, do we have any homeless students that are participating?
You know, once again, if we wanted to specifically ask our principals to invite some students who were homeless, we certainly could.
Do we have any participating students who are homeless?
We do. Within our district, we have quite a
As a
large
stakeholder in the LCAP process?
We have not targeted a group specifically with that. What we would do is be intentional about inviting them in.
Okay, because as far as diversity, they're one of the lowest minorities, I think. What about foster kids? Do we have any foster kids participating in the LCAP?
We can certainly, once again, make those requests through the school.
So what I heard was no to both of those questions. At the moment, we don't have anyone, but we can target them. Is that your answer?
What I'm saying is I have not yet gone through the process here in Ocean View. What I know is that we're planning focus groups and being intentional with our principals to identify students to participate, and so we will certainly make these requests.
Well, I'm just asking the question. I don't know if we want to pursue that or not. But as far as diversity, you want to cast the widest net that you possibly can. Some of these students, while we may want them to participate and to increase our diversity, may not wish to participate and won't participate. And so I understand the limitations. I'm just questioning to see how far we go with this diversity thing. So you've answered my question.
Any other questions? I'd make a point. Under federal regulation, a second family living in a one-bedroom apartment is by definition homeless. that child is living doubled up in a household. In addition to under a bridge of bond or in a car or in a motel or hotel room in a garage conversion. So that's there. We'll go on to, that concludes the LCAP process. Go on to L2, OVSD Connections, Ocean View School District Program Information Nights Overview. Superintendent Hanson.
I'd just like to make one comment about the last item.
About the homelessness?
Somewhat. About
Yes.
LCAP. We really have tried to be a little bit more intentional by working with our principals to try to identify people to serve on these focus groups. Because when we just say, oh, come give input on the LCAP, we sometimes don't get people. So it really is hard to get participation. So we're really trying to be intentional by tapping people and making it required of our principals to get people. And so it's good input tonight that you really do wish to have diversity, and so we can go back and ask for more diverse to make that a priority.
I almost moved off L1. Yes, Trustee Salas.
Just really quickly, I'm sorry. I would make the suggestion that the principals meet with the teachers, the classroom teachers, because they have some of the strongest relationships with the students and know a lot about their backgrounds and can approach them in a way that might be less confrontational than the principal.
That's a good suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. On to L2, Superintendent Hanson. Can you help us with that report, please?
Yes. Now we are going to have a report on our parent information night. We just wanted to inform you so you can be good stewards of our District 2 and share this with parents and community members of what we're doing out there to promote all of our specialized programs in order to recruit families both inside and outside the district. And you saw at our last meeting we have some wonderful new brochures, and actually many of our specialized programs are developing brochures to promote. So I asked Dr. Hofer to just come tonight, give a very brief overview of each of the evenings that we have planned, starting with this week's kindergarten night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am really excited to be here tonight to talk about our parent information nights, and really they have two purposes: to inform our currently enrolled families and to market to new families. And you can see over the next month that every single week we have some sort of parent-guardian information night starting really this week. We have our kindergarten information night on Thursday at 6 p.m. And this is really where we welcome families into our OVSD family. They learn a little bit about kindergarten, transitional kindergarten or TK, early kindergarten. They have an opportunity to meet with staff. Every school is represented, as well as food services, transportation, child care, preschool. And we talk about the enrollment process, the transfer process, and a little bit about our child care programs, knowing that before and after school child care is essential for many of our. They're going to talk a little bit, our middle school principals will talk a little bit about the tips and tricks for a successful transition to middle school. They'll have an opportunity to learn about our rigorous academic programs and get the latest information on electives. And once again, we have information about enrollment, transfers, and child care, because we do offer child care up into the middle school level. Then in February, we start with our innovative program nights. And the first one to kick it off is really our science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics information night that is held at Lakeview Elementary School. This night is really a program overview of how STEAM is embedded into the regular school day, along with technology, hands-on experiences, and student-centered instruction. The parents have the opportunity to go on a student-created video-guided tour, as well as they have intentionally linked this new family STEAM information night with their family technology night. So that night from 5 to 6, new families have this STEAM information night. Afterwards, they're welcome to stay from 6 to 7:30 to hear a scientist from JPL present, and there's opportunities to play with robots and see the 3D printers in actions and see what our family nights are really all about. Then we have our visual and performing arts information night for Westmont. And this one, we really learn a lot about how creativity and visual and performing arts are embedded into the regular day, along with keyboarding, dance lessons, musical performances. Students do perform, and it's held in the multi-purpose room with a full art display. Those families will also receive an update on site modernizations. We have presented, obviously, Dr. Conroy has presented quite a bit of information to you, and some of that information will be shared with our families as well. And finally, we have our Environmental Science Information Night, February 20th at 6 p.m. at Golden View. And this will include an overview of how the environmental principles are integrated across the curriculum, including hands-on experiences with that 2.5-acre farm and garden. They will have a site tour and learn a little bit about our farm renovation. All of this is done in order to give our families choice. The intra-district transfer window is from February 4th to February 22nd. So we're very intentional about informing all families about the opportunities to participate in these innovative programs. Then the inter-district window for our families who live outside Ocean View but wish to send their students into our programs opens on March 1st. And with that, thank you.
Trustee Westwell?
Does the inter-district window close?
We really don't close it. It's based on space. We do everything we can because of staffing to have some closure to it, but anytime that we can accept a family, we absolutely do. We do everything we can.
So if we don't have it closed, why do we have it open?
We have it open because we need to publicize that to our community for when we begin to accept them, because they are accepted on a space basis. So if we have a program that fills up, we simply won't have space. And we do have some programs that are very full. That time is of the essence.
What if someone submitted their inter-district transfer on April 30th? Would we accept it?
Did you intra or within district or the inter? Inter, we take all the way up as long as we can based on staffing and space.
Any other questions? Trustee Savage?
Just a quick question. You said, just for the audience, you said BAPA information night for Westmont Elementary School. Is that taking place at the ISS, or is that, I mean, because Westmont's closed down, correct?
You're right, it is at the interim site where they are currently attending school.
Okay, which is at the old, what we used to call.
We used to call it Sun.
Okay, just so people understand.
Is it not Sun?
Any questions? I have a few. Is it STEAM or STEM?
It is STEAM because we include arts in there.
Thank you. Family Technology Night, and then we had in the previous presentation comments about equity. How do we address family equity to technology when there's no computers at home and that sort of thing at a STEAM school, with technology as being an overarching? Do we have anything we do to address that?
We do not send our devices home. However, I am not sure about our specific schools. What I know is that in many communities, most students have access to some amount of technology. Even if it's at the public library, if it's at a community center and such. It's not equitable, and I'm not pretending it is.
I want to draw your attention to the equity issue with our lowest quartile of students, socioeconomic quartile. I wish I had answers for you. I'm just asking questions. Then the other question is, you said we have full programs. How full is our GATE program? Are we turning students away from those two programs? Being all-inclusive, not the cluster, whatever.
The magnet, it is typically one of our programs that does fill up. I cannot say exactly when, but you are right. It is one of our programs that tends to fill to capacity.
Is there sufficiency given our long-term experience in teaching an all-inclusive GATE program Is there sufficient interest to open a second site?
I really couldn't say. I mean, I recognize that we have many students out there who participate, having not been through this process once. I'm not really sure.
How close to full is our VAPA environmental and STEAM program school sites? Programs.
Our environmental science program is open. We have room. Our STEAM program at Lake is near capacity.
Really?
But we can still, it depends on how many more classes we want to open. And last year we had to open two additional classrooms last year. So we have space to probably open another classroom, but that would take away space from extra rooms that are used there. Our VAPA program still does have space. And our GATE program does fill up, and we do recruit students from outside the district in our GATE program, and we've relied on that, and we continue to rely on that. There has been some concern about opening an additional fully inclusive GATE program, that we would have the numbers to fill an entire school. And so there's some mixed views among our community, our in-house internal stakeholders about a whole nother inclusive GATE school. Would we have the capacity to fill that? Would it, for better choice of words, water down the current program that we have? So there's some variety of views, and we've had a GATE committee working on these suggestions. We're not there to bring a report to you, but it's been an ongoing process. And now we also have Ms. Hickman, who has moved up to work with our categorical programs that I think will lend some expertise in that area too.
Did I hear you say that FVSD was concerned about us opening a second school site close to the border?
Yes, very much. They are.
Last it said, when it says intra-district window February, is that enrollment in the next fall, or is that enrollment immediately change over?
That is the following fall.
Thank you. That concludes my questions or comments. Any others? We'll move on to item L3, construction. Thank you very much, Dr. Holford. Construction update, Superintendent Hanson. You prepared to?
I am prepared to turn this over to the almighty Dr. Conroy, who is going to be swift, and he's going to stay under 7 minutes. Okay. Dr. Hofer set the bar there for him to be under 7 minutes.
So we're watching.
Not that they're competitive at all.
So I'll bypass the formal introduction, but I would like to introduce, we have our construction team in the back, Ledesma Meyer and district staff, Jim Choate, our architect DLR is not here, but they are part of this presentation, so I'll jump right into it. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to give you a brief overview of all the projects that we have going on in the district, and we have quite a few. And this really kind of puts things into perspective of all the work that we have done and are currently doing and what we have upcoming. As you know, we've already completed the interim site, and if you've ever had a chance to visit the interim site, it really is a marked improvement over the facility that was there prior. Not that there was anything wrong with some of you, but we really enhanced the site. We're currently working on Westmont. We are on schedule to finish at the end of the school year, so we can start the transition of moving Westmont from the interim site to their site and moving college out into the interim site. We are on schedule with the gym project. That's moving along quite nicely, and at one of the next upcoming board meetings we'll give you some pictures of the progress that has been made to date. We are also moving forward on the central kitchen project, which will be placed over at the warehouse on the property right off of Warner. That is on schedule as well to be completed at the beginning of August. The temporary kitchen, the board approved that contract back in December. The unit was placed at the warehouse facility in December, and so food services has been working to get that up and running. We will be bringing the first phase of the fencing project to enclose our schools, which will include Harbor, Hope Village, Golden Circle, and Lake. We'll be working with our team to establish the order of which those projects will take place, because we want to be aware of the impact it will have on our summer programs, because we want to make sure that our summer school programs have those facilities, and so we'll work on the alignment there. We are working to improve the restrooms at Harbor in the original wing of the building. Boys and girls room, restrooms on the west end, the north end, and then the kindergarten wing as well. And so we'll be looking to start construction as soon as school's out in July and have it finished at the end of August. We are working on upgrading and modernizing, I wouldn't say modernizing, it would be more of a deferred maintenance project to upgrade the HVAC system at Spring. So we're working through that and looking that we would do that in July and August, so they'd be ready for the beginning of the school year. One of the items that we're adding at the interim site is a walk-in cooler box for food services. The site, when Sunview was in operations and only housed a couple hundred students, now we've got quite a few more students that will be coming there in the future, particularly with middle schools, is that we need the capacities to store dry foods, as well as refrigeration units for the fresher products. So we will be working on that. That will be installed beginning in July and hopefully completed by the end of September. And we will have bid packets going out and coming to the board for approval. As mentioned earlier, we're working on farm renovation over at Golden View. The first part of that, before we can really get into it, we need to have a survey of the land and the boundaries of the properties, which I'll speak to in a moment. Once we have the boundaries, we can start dealing with the topical geographical survey of the land in terms of the civil work that needs to be done, and then putting new fencing up around the entire farm facility and working with the neighbors, because part of that on the west side, the fence line is actually the homeowners, they use our fence as their fence. So we have to have some conversations so we know where the property line actually sits. One of the things that will be coming tonight later in the board agenda is to do an ALTA survey. It is the gold standard of surveying for properties and provides information that is useful not only with our construction project, modernization projects, our fencing project, but also some of the issues that we've had long-term discussions here in the district with easements of our properties and where do our property lines actually exist when we want to work for the city, when they want to have a temporary easement with us, we'll know exactly where our property lines are. So it's a very comprehensive survey. So that will be coming to the board later this evening. One of the projects that we had mentioned early on when we were listing all of the projects that we might be doing is a Harbor View access road to alleviate the congestion for parents dropping off and picking up parents at Harbor View. And so we're looking at a couple options that we would present to the board. We are in the process of finalizing all of the bid documents for the College View modernization. We've met with staff a couple of times. We met with the principal for about a 4-hour session, thoroughly going through the plans, making what last-minute adjustments we need for the big documents, and those will be coming shortly. Again, we'll be looking to move College View out of their facility into the interim site this summer after we've moved Westmont back to their home. And then we are starting now with our schematic and drawings of the marine modernization. In terms of what we'll be doing there, we've had conversations initially with their staff, with their administration, with food services, so we're coming around again for a second time to share with them the initial schematic conceptual idea before we actually get into drawings. And that concludes my report.
I thought you were going awfully fast to start with, but if you hadn't, it'd be way behind me, 7 minutes.
I had to get under my 7 minutes. Not that I'm being competitive with anybody or not.
Trustee Westwell.
President Briscoe. The central kitchen, I don't recall, are we going to have air conditioning for our classified employees there now?
Yes.
Perfect. The new fencing at Golden View, or are we gonna have the coyote bars put back on top of that fence?
Around the farm, we're putting a 10-foot fence around the entire farm complex.
Okay.
So that we won't need to have the rolling bar that is currently there.
Hopefully, okay.
Thank you. Trustee Clayton Carmen?
So the golden, well, first I want to say this is very comprehensive. I'm very impressed. I'm just impressed, period, with all the work that you and your department and the construction management team and Mr. Chode and everybody involved has done. I mean, really, since you've all been on board, we've seen a major, major improvement, and I'm really happy, very happy. Okay, so Golden View, so it's school building, farm, what about just the perimeter fencing for Gold, or did I miss that? Where?
The farm and the fencing are two separate projects.
Okay.
So Golden, I believe, is in the first phase of the fencing.
Right.
So that is part of the fencing project.
Okay.
The farm is its own project.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Any other questions? I'll quickly spool through. I see you have landscaping here. Who is designing our landscaping? On page West modernization, we highlight painting and landscaping.
Our architect, DLR, they have landscape architects that work with them in the design.
Are we doing anything for tall tree, green leafy canopy work?
Yes, I'm leaving that up to Mr. Chode.
Okay.
Yes, we do acknowledge your concern, the board's concern about green leafy canopies that provide shade for students.
You can be deciduous too. An SAT test word, deciduous. Under fencing phase 1, you mentioned summer school programs. What summer school programs did you contemplate when you used those?
Which schools are we going to use?
No, you said we're going to phase and plan to coincide with summer school programs. What summer school programs did
Well,
you?
we have our ESY, we have our child care programs that we offer during the summer, and so we want to make sure that the sites are available without any construction during the summer.
Thank you. On the Harbor View restrooms, is that a DSA approval, architectural design, sign-off project?
Yes.
Will we have DSA approval by the time you start working on it? The answer is yes, obviously. It seems like an awfully quick turnaround for how they operate.
Yes.
Is it possible we won't have their approval by then?
By the time we do, we go out.
July 19?
We will have DSA approved before we go out to bid. I believe that's our goal.
At Springview, you mentioned they redo on the HVA and C.
Yes.
Is it a 4-pipe system like all the rest of the sites we put a new in?
No, we're looking at a deferred maintenance project, and there's a difference between modernization and deferred maintenance. If we do modernization, we're then opening up the entire canopy, the entire envelope of the building, and then that triggers a variety of code requirements, and we would not be able to get it done.
So we are improving HVAC without all new 4-pipe stuff.
That's correct.
But
we are investigating as much as we can do that still keeps it within a deferred maintenance project.
Under Golden View Farm, there's a number of Boy Scouts of America, Eagle Scout projects that exist there. I would urge you to consider doing your best to save those to the extent that we can. My son earned his Eagle Scout. He did his Eagle Scout project at Village View, where he went to elementary school. He planted giant 4-foot sized box trees 3 feet in the ground with a whole lot of drama, because I was there. When he comes into town, the first thing he does is drive over there to see if his trees are still alive. 15 years later. So these projects mean a lot to the scouts that do them, and there's several at Golden View on the farm. Under the survey, are we going to have tack and pin monument markers installed on corners?
I'm not exactly sure what they will do. I know they're searching for the tacker markers in their survey. I don't know what they install.
Well, we would, if they're going to survey with the transit, they would put a little round dot with their marker, and then are they going to mark? I'd like to know how far out in all the streets we own. That's why I'm going to that. Will I be able to go look and see a marker?
I can't answer that. We will have obviously we'll have the maps. It'd be similar to the survey that I shared with you this summer that we did at Oak.
Would you ask that question for me?
Yes.
On the tack and pin? And then my other favorite perennial question is, College View, where it's a big problem. Golden View is a giant problem with tiny walls. Marine View, where kids actually ride bikes. What are we doing about the bike cages?
We will have a bike rack.
And locked and secured
Yes.
and designed?
Yes.
Great. On all the sites we go through and modernize and redo. And then the shade cover at Marine View is a bit of a problem. Is that included in a redo update?
Yes, that is not a DSA approved shade structure, so that will be going in when we haven't put in a new one, similar to what we did at the end site.
This is an incredible project. What's the multi-million-dollar value of your annual construction supervision oversight? Can you give me an estimate? 10 million? 15 million?
Oversight.
You are responsible for overseeing
all of that?
All of it. Giant. This is like,
Well,
your resume is going to be too powerful. You're going to quit and go work for somebody else.
I think our first phase was somewhere was around $20 million, so we're, we're going to be expanding through that fairly quickly, so we'll be looking at another.
You're responsible for $20 million a year of construction oversight, at least. Is that
Yes.
correct? It's a lot. And with all the good
But I have to say, I have a great team that supports the district in Jim Choate overseeing facilities, Bud Dozenmeyer being our representative of the construction management team. DLR is our architect. I have to share with Cabinet and Carol. She comes to some of our meetings as well. Dr. Hansen comes to our meetings. So we do have a very wide breadth of staff that are involved. The principals are involved when we come to their schools as well as their staff as well.
$20 million a year of construction. The buck stops at your desk. Congratulations for doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the L items. Thank you, Dr. Conroy. We'll move on to the consent calendar. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I will move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. There is no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We need a motion to approve these. Consent calendar approved 5-0. Old business, N1. Superintendent's Office proposed additions, revisions to board bylaw and administrative regulation 9323. Meeting conduct, third reading. This is on the agenda for action. I need a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This is the third reading. I see no discussion. I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No nays? Approved 5-0. N2. Superintendent's proposed additions, revisions to board policies and administrative regulations, Series 5000. Students, board policy, administrative regulation 5145.13. Response to immigration enforcement, second reading, and on our agenda for action. May I have a motion to?
I will move.
Move for motion. I move to approve. Second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I see no discussion. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Westwell, no.
Westwell in opposition. All the trustees in favor. It passes 4-1. We're on to item O, new business. O1, Superintendent's Office, Ocean View District Blueprint on our agenda for action. Need a motion to approve?
I will move.
Motion to second.
Second.
Motion for the new business item O1's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Trustee Westwell.
Well, I'm looking through here and I'm reading three different kinds of people in here, all talking about the same thing. One, we call them learners. Then we call the same person a child, and then we also call them students. These have been students for as long as I can remember, and hearing people discuss tonight, I hear students, I hear teachers talk about students. I never hear anybody talking about learners. And here we are coming up with this fantastic new language. Not really sure why. I would like to change learners to students, make them all the same. I mean, we're we're talking about the same person here. There should be consistency in our documents. It's been historic. Historically, we've always called them students. I'd like to understand more why we're changing students into learners sometimes. Can someone tell me why we're
Trustee Westwell, could you identify?
This is the whole learner. I mean, this is obvious. Do we need to have a discussion about this? I don't think so. I'd like to move on. Leave it the way it is. It's fine. Thank you.
If you'd like to call for the question, we can do that. Or Superintendent Hanson can explain the derivative document that is from the focus group and how we arrived at that. Could you help us, please?
As you recall in our discussion at a special board meeting, that the blueprint was created by a focus group, and these statements were created and came up, were developed by people in the focus group, and the term learner resonated with the group because that is the type of student that we are aiming to create, one that comes forward as one who wants to constantly be a learner. And the first three statements have to do with learning and the focus on students gaining academic knowledge and gaining understanding of key concepts and being exposed to innovative programs, all in a learning situation. So that's my best explanation of where that term came from.
What you're saying is the wording in this was derived mostly from the focus group that we asked to help us.
Absolutely. I move to call the question.
Second.
Moved and second to call the question. There's no discussion. I'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Westwell, no.
Okay, then we will, it's approved 4-1. Westwell in opposition. We will, I will call for the vote on the item. 01. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Westwell, no.
The motion is approved. The blueprint stands as it is presented. Item 02, Superintendent's Office Governance Team Handbook on our agenda for action. A motion to approve.
I will move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Trustee Tarvin.
Well, I want to thank my fellow colleagues, Trustee Souders, Briscoe, and Singer for being here last week. It was unfortunate that Trustee Westwell couldn't be here for the discussion because I think these are things that he would have benefited from hearing. There were several things that were gone over that, if I get to the correct page, like school visitations. There's a procedure and a process for school visitations. All trustees need to make sure that they're following that. Of course, unless they're going to their own child's school site to do volunteer work, that's different. But that would only be Trustee Singer and I. So also, it would be, let's see, directing work of staff. We should all be mindful of that when we're at school sites. Individual board members' requests for information, materials, or action. That is something we need to be very mindful of because when you're asking for things, you're not directing. Not one board member directs the superintendent in his or her, in this case, her work. We have to also make sure that we come prepared to meetings, read your information before you get here so that you are informed and not taking up the time that you could have taken at home to do the research ahead of time. Let's see. I think that is about it. I approve of this. I think we should get to a vote. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? I see no further discussion. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Westwell, no.
The agenda item is approved 4-1. Westwell in opposition. To 03, Administrative Services, amended and restated lease department.
Well, I'm pleased to see this lease here this evening. I think that the Ocean View School District Board of Trustees and staff, and in particular the board's commitment to keeping our school sites that are no longer being used as public schools, being used for various purposes that bring in revenue. And this is one of the school sites that brings in quite a bit of revenue to the school district, along with some of our other school sites like Glenview and Meadowview and so on. This incoming revenue creates the money that we have that's used to pay back debt and debt service. So, for instance, we have some debt on some loans that we've taken, and we are paying back those loans and even having a balance. Actually, President Briscoe, might you ask our deputy superintendent to talk about what we take in a year, which includes this lease revenue, and what we pay out, and talk about the balance and how we are doing a really good job of saving. Instead of selling these off to developers, we're saving school buildings and we're making income. And providing a place for folks to go to parochial school, which we, of course, as a public school system, cannot provide.
So, Dr. Conroy, could you share with us the amount of income that comes into all of our leases that allowed us to build 4 gymnasiums and allowed us to remediate asbestos on 3 school sites?
So the income that we would expect this year would be almost $2.4 million to pay off the certificates of participation that we have outstanding. It's about $2.1 million. So we're expecting to have a balance at the end of the year of over $250,000 from net receipts of lease payments. So we're doing very well.
Trustee Clayton Turner.
And so with this, would we be seeing an increase, and if so, by how much, above the $250,000 net?
I don't have how much that will increase, but if we look at the contract, I'd have to look at what the contract was in the past and how much it's comparing. But I can tell you that whatever we're getting from the current contract that we have, at this new contract beginning in July 1st will be 2.5% above that for every year after that. So it increases 2.5% each year. So we can expect, as well as the others, because they're also increasing 2.5%. So as we collect more lease revenue and we pay down our costs, our net balance should every year increase itself.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Trustee Westwell?
If I remember right, we used to use lease income money to modernize and do maintenance in our schools. Are we still doing that, using that money for that purpose?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? No discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Passes 5-0. Item 04, Administrative Services Professional Services Agreement between Ocean View School District of Orange County and Fusco. How's it pronounced? Fusco Engineering for site surveys project is on for agenda or action. Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Trustee Sowers, I need to say
Yeah, I have a question. Is this the gold standard? This question is for Dr. Conroy. My question, I have a couple, but first, is this the gold standard he referred to earlier on in his presentation?
Is this the gold standard?
Okay, yes. Of surveys. And then my second question is, how long can these surveys be considered valid? Like, what's their shelf life? How often do we have to redo this?
Is the George Washington survey ever invalid?
I don't think so. I think once we have this, we know what our property lines are. Unless we take action to change them, these should be good for ever.
Okay. And then in terms of the records, where would they be kept?
We will have them.
Okay. In the district office somewhere?
In facilities.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Conroy, a professional survey company that places a tack and pin keeps those records. They're proprietary, as is their map for us to use. Is that correct?
I think so.
So there's records that are kept and recorded both at the surveyor's office as well as to the client, that would be us.
Correct.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 5-0. Item O5, Administrative Services, Local Educational Agencies, LEA, Medi-Cal Billing Option Provider Participation Agreement with State of California Health and Human Services Agency, Department of Health Care Services. This is on the agenda for action. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Or move to approve?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? I have a question. It says local educational agencies. Is LEA local educational or educational without an AL?
I believe it's educational.
Okay, thank you. There's no further discussion. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0. O6, Educational Services Independent Contractor Agreement between Ocean View School District of Orange County and Eileen Morey for Medi-Cal Consultation Services. On the agenda for action, do I hear a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second? I'll second. Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 5-0. 07, Human Resources, quarterly summary on Williams Uniform Complaints, Education Code Section 35186, January 2019. It's on the agenda for information. So turn to what page is it on? 145 on our agenda. A careful review shows that there are no listed complaints. Is there any further question or comment for the administration from anyone on the board about no complaints? Trustee Savage, did you raise your hand?
No, that's my head.
Okay. And we will move on to item O8. Human Resources, Student Field Placement Agreement between Ocean View School District of Orange County and California State University, Long Beach, Go Beach, social work on the agenda for action. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion, Trustee Savage?
Just a quick question. I guess I would go to the superintendent. And I know that these students, and maybe I missed this looking through here. I know that these students are to be with teachers at all times and never be alone in the classroom with students. But do we have any kind of procedures that we follow with regards to student safety and student teacher? This is about student teacher placement. If I'm not mistaken.
Well, it's similar to student teachers, except
Well, Trustee Savage, you were addressing that question to me.
Yes, I was.
I could take a guess, but Superintendent Hanson, could you answer that for us, please?
Just to clarify, these are social workers.
Okay.
And that these employees, these interns would adhere to all same policies that teachers must adhere to in regards to student safety.
And President Briscoe, are we responsible as a district to pay for their live scans and all the different safety protocols that they have to go through, or do they take care of it themselves?
Well, that's a good question. Do they have to have all those protocols done, and do we take care of that, Superintendent Hanson?
No, they are responsible for that.
Thank you.
Trustee Clayton Tarver.
So I want to make it clear, social workers do not need to be the teachers. Social workers do their work, sometimes alone with a particular student, or oftentimes in a focus group or with a group of counseling with students. I frequently refer students to the social workers, similar to these. They're great they're a great resource to have on campus, even when they're student field, they're working to get their credentials. They're oftentimes relied upon by the teachers to do the work that, frankly wouldn't get done because we don't have adequate funding to have a psychologist in every single school site. It's a real problem in California. So I wholeheartedly support this because we need them.
Any other discussion? Trustee Souders, were you concerned about appropriate adult-youth contact and supervision of that contact?
Yes.
And we had a teacher who locked himself in a room with little boys at lunchtime, and he's in jail now. So that's sort of where that's going. But could you Superintendent, could you comment on how we supervise and manage the adult youth contact with these people?
We have supervisors for these programs that adhere to certain protocols that they need to follow and records that we keep. So it is different than a student-teacher relationship, but there are protocols in place. I'm going to let Mr. Avila comment on any additional questions you have in this area.
Is he raising his hand very anxiously?
He's in charge. He is in charge of this particular contract.
Thank you. Mr. Avila, would you please tell us?
Sure. Just like student teachers, they're going to be supervised by our current employees who are social workers. So they will be doing the same thing. They have the same regulations that they have to follow, the policies with regards to fingerprinting and TB. They'll be supervised by a university professor, as well as them meeting with their supervisor on staff at the school site, the two psychologists or social workers that we have. This is something that we're planning in advance for next year and looking at second-year interns versus the first-year interns.
That's sufficient, Trustee Souders?
Absolutely, thank you.
So this is on our agenda for action. If there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number P, any other public communications to the Board of Trustees?
We have one, Emily Anderson.
The patient, Emily Anderson.
Trying to get the kids going. And tell Dr. Conrad was the last one up here. I'm a little shorter. Okay, well, I started. Yeah, I will second that. Go Beach. And I also will mention, I want to mention just that for my own son's schooling. I believe we had a intern as part of his SST team. Anyways, what I wanted to come up here and discuss was I was one of a few parents that joined the board at the OCDE meeting, and it was shocking and upsetting, and there's lots of things that I just want to make sure the public, all the parents are aware of. It's to my understanding that some of the leaders of Sycamore Creek are also the same that ran Albert Einstein School into the ground. There's a few of those. You can also research that yourselves. They have a GoFundMe account, which has been running for 39 months. Of their $25,000 goal, they've only reached $11,845. I think that's kind of speaks for itself as well. They offer nothing, in my opinion, that OVSD doesn't already exist here and excel at, or have, in my opinion, nonsense methodologies such as, and this is their words, teaching math like fractions using whole, half, and quarter notes musically. But what about eighths, fifths, thirds, and so forth? It doesn't make sense. And I'm sorry, I'm not a math teacher, but this doesn't make sense. They also lied explicitly, saying that they had their petition in Spanish when they went around to our Title I largely Spanish-speaking parents, which they did not. They used the word in Spanish, construir, which means to build, and made up nonsense trying to say you could build a paper and such so forth. No, they were saying that they were going to build a school. It was very unethical. As a parent, I do not support this charter, nor them coming after Oakview Elementary, which is having a gym built, state-of-the-art HVAC, and so forth, as well as our Measure R funds, which we worked hard to get passed. I will be at the OCDE meeting again on February 13th in lots of blue, and I hope many more parents will be able to as well. The lead petitioners are now bullying our board, threatening lawsuits based on OVSD denying them property under Prop 39, which is what they were targeting Oakview Spanish-speaking parents to get signatures for. I actually started a Facebook group, I just want to put this out there myself, OVSD Parents Against Sycamore Charter, in hopes of sharing what this charter is about and to gather available parents to attend with having knowledge of the situation, why many and this entire board is saying no to Sycamore. Wear your blue and show the Board of Ed that we stand together against this charter.
And as far as the equity that came up about technology earlier, I can say as myself as a substitute in various districts, I myself, even as a sub, have stayed after class and giving kids time in class when they finish their work to use technology in class. That's all.
Before you sit down, I had a question. Are you saying there's no such thing as a 1/17th note?
I'm not a musical expert, but I don't believe so. I did play clarinet for a while.
Thank you. Are there any further public communications, Trustee Souders?
There are none.
Item Q, future agenda items as requested by board members. Any? There are none. Item R, Board of Trustees Roundtable, starting with Trustee Souders.
Okay. I know I said I was going to keep it brief in the interest of time, but everyone else spoke, so I'm going to give it a go too. Just to reiterate, we do have the Orange County school board meeting on February 13th for the Sycamore Creek appeal vote. Please attend if you have the time during the day. I can't guarantee you how much time you're going to have to spend there. Congratulations to Dennis Nicolosi. That's great news on his OC educator accolades. We do have the best teachers here in OVSD. And I would like to thank the board for the LCAP appointment. And if you have any input that you'd like to give me, I will be happy to take it to the meetings and share it with the rest of the team. Thank you.
Trustee Clayton Tarman.
Here's some more good news. The strike in LA Unified is over. The board and the superintendent have come to terms. Sorry, the board, the superintendent, and the union have come to terms, and Mayor Eric Garcetti announced that at a joint press conference. The teachers will be receiving a 6% raise. We found money somehow, which is very interesting. They're going to have tighter controls on charters. Actually, they're looking at that because that has run their budget into the ground, along with some other things that have to do with serving students more appropriately. Services for kids with nurses and psychologists, social workers, and things that the children need. Okay, Authors Day is coming up around the district. Various authors come to different school sites and give presentations to the students. It's coordinated with the Friends of the Children's Library. I will be attending at Hopeview. I did attend the Brea Olinda Unified School District board meeting with President Briscoe. We both spoke at the press conference beforehand at a sort of a protest, gave comments about what we thought about the naming of the school, and then we spoke at the board meeting to the Board of Trustees itself. Also, I was at the Orange County Department of Education appeal hearing for the charter school. I strongly suggested that the Board of Education deny this charter school because I don't believe that it's academically sound, and I am very concerned about their tactics used against our most sensitive population, our population that doesn't always have a voice, and it concerns me their tactics, and now their tactics to want to bully some of the Board of Trustees as well. And congratulations to Dennis Nicolosi. He was my child's teacher for choral, for chorus class, and Mr. Nick is just a great person, especially that he is a type 1 diabetic, and he struggles to keep his health in order, or has in the past, and I just want to give him the accolades that he deserves because he's fighting on multiple sort of levels, and his #1 fight is to make sure that the kids have a sound music education. So thank you to Mr. Nick. And I will be attending the TED Festival at Starview this coming year. I attended last year with Trustee Briscoe, with Dr. Hansen, and with our now Congressman Harley Ruda. So I hope to be able to invite him back again this year, and hope that the other trustees might come along to see the great activity at Starview. It's really special. And that's it.
Thank you. Trustee Westwell.
I'd like to concur with everyone else and thank Dennis Nicolosi for his award of getting into that magazine, his recognition in the magazine. And thank you all for staying here tonight. With that, I'm done. Thank you.
Trustee Singer.
I just want to thank all of the trustees for working well together with each other. We're collaborating, and I think we are constantly working on
creating a constant positive message, and I'm really happy to see that. I really do look forward to working with each and every one of you, and I think that God will continue to move us in a positive direction. I think our district has so much more to achieve, and we're doing a great job. So thank you to each and every one of you for putting your effort, for coming prepared to the meetings, for having a positive attitude, and working together to ensure that students are always first. And I think if we continue to do that, we're going to continuously grow as a district and show what we are made of. So thank you, guys.
And I'll conclude, the unfunded pension liability is extraordinary, putting our district in a deficit of minus $5 million by GASB and GAAP accounting. I hadn't heard that number before. It's a stunning figure. And $1 billion or $2 billion out of Newsom's budget is, all it does is reduce the amount of money we have to put into the grossly underfunded plans because of the overexcited projections of returns. It's just a disaster, so we should all be aware that it's a mess. On the bright side, many vendors, many people out there give discounts to school employees, trustees, and teachers. So I'd urge you to ask your question when you go shop. I know that Joanne's, I think, is 15% on top of whatever sales they have. You just prove, I have the card at home, you just show your card and they'll give you the money. You should ask for it. So ask for your AAA discount first. Ask for your military veteran if you're a veteran, and always ask for your school district discount. That concludes my suggestions for tonight. We go to item number S, closed session if needed. We have cleverly avoided that tonight. We go to item T, return to open session. We're here, and that leaves the largest item on the agenda, item U. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Been moved by Trustee Singer to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Say aye. All those opposed? No nays. Amazing. The meeting is adjourned at 8:22.
All right.